Welcome inside the John Book Fieldhouse on the Concordia University Wisconsin campus in Mequon. It's the third and final day of the 2024 NCATA Division III tournament. It's the team championship that features the defending NCATA Division III champs, the University of Mary Hardin-Baylor, the Crusaders, the number 1 seed, taking on the number 2 seed, the Trine University Thunder. Welcome to our continuing coverage of acrobatics and tumbling via the Falcon Athletic Network, alongside Concordia University, Wisconsin acrobatics and tumbling alum Maddie Schultz. My name is Matt Menzel. Maddie, great to have you with us here on this Saturday. How exciting, a champion to be crowned here in Division III.
Yeah, good morning. This is super exciting. This is my first national championships I've been able to attend, as this wasn't a thing back when I went to school here. So it's just something so special to see that Division III finally gets their own chance to compete for a national title.
This being the third edition, the Concordia University Wisconsin Falcons won the inaugural event back in 2022, and Mary Hardin-Baylor, for the first time, participated in this event last year, won the title, hosted the event, and now looking to make it back-to-back years. They have a rematch against the Trine Thunder. Last year, the Crusaders knocking off Trine in that final, 268.270 to 245.225. We'll get things started with the compulsory event. Up first, the Trine Thunder, the acro heat with a start value of 10. For Trine, looking for that strong start. Able to score an 8.675 in the acro heat yesterday against Concordia, Wisconsin. But trying to set that tone, trying to spark that energy right from the get-go.
Yeah. Looks really good. It's a strong start. You can see both the teams have a lot of energy coming into the meet today, even after, multiple days of competition.
I know for Trine, that mindset is, hey, a chance to redeem ourselves. And another shot here at Mary Hardin-Baylor. The Thunder 0-2 all the time against the Crew, facing Mary Hardin-Baylor not once but twice during the 2023 season. And for Mary Hardin-Baylor, it's a big one, too, because right now they're ranked 5th in the NCATA championship rankings. They want to stay in that top 8 and potentially be in the national tournament coming up in a couple of weeks from West Virginia, so they can't falter. And we'll see them coming out here with a start value of 10 in a moment. They had a bye in the quarterfinals on Thursday, competed yesterday in a semi, knocked off Texas Lutheran, 266.330 to 241.715. And for the Crew, they scored a 9.48 in the acro heat. And it's kind of impressive when you look at the various start values. They have a value of 10 in 11 heats throughout the course of this day.
That's huge. Being able to have a 10-0 start value gives you don't want to say it's more room for error, but it gives you that edge against your competitor who might not have a 10-0 start. And every little tenth of a point counts in acro. We all know how close these competitions can get. I'm also very excited to see Mary Hardin-Baylor compete, because they were not even a program when I was here. So I've never seen them compete in person, and I know they've got a really strong and young program.
Yeah, back for their 5th season, established in 2020, but of course 2020 got cut short during the pandemic. Coming off a year last year in which they compiled a 10-1 record, undefeated against Division III schools. And yet the Crew coming into this one with a record of 8-1. They've won 8 consecutive, and once again undefeated against D3 competition. Their lone loss, a very close loss against Baylor. And we know Baylor sets the bar high in acrobatics and tumbling, and Mary Hardin-Baylor was able to hold their own.
Wow.
So the acro heat here in the compulsory event for University of Mary Hardin-Baylor. The two tops being Jenna Hall along with Sarah Williamson. Maya Manka handling the counting. And a strong start here for the Crusaders.
There's not a lot of things they can deduct for that. That was really nice.
Now for Trine, they scored an 8.525 in the Acro 8. We'll wait for the score to come in here for the Crew. And you mentioned it briefly, okay, for these athletes, not used to necessarily competing back-to-back days. Now in the case of Trine, they competed on Thursday in a quarterfinal against Buffalo State, faced host Concordia, Wisconsin yesterday. Mary Hardin-Baylor with the advantage of a bye and then competed for the first time yesterday. But how tough do you think that is for at least Trine? 3 straight days, and in some cases, quick turnarounds, competing meet after meet after meet.
Yeah, acro is a very physically demanding sport. And even after one competition in one weekend, it does take time to recover. And for these girls to come back day after day after day and keep giving it their best, it really takes a lot of grit for them. And it's kind of, how do you say, like, battle of the toughest. At the end of the week, it just becomes who can withhold all these days of competition and all the strain on your body.
It's been a great year so far, too, for the Thunder. They've compiled a record of 7-2. The 7 wins, a program record. They've won 4 consecutive meets coming into this NCATA Division III final. As we move on to the Pyramid Heat. And a start value of 10 for Trine. Note for Mary Hardin-Baylor, a score of 9.350 for the Acro Hoots. So when you go back to yesterday's semis, both teams slightly behind where they were after the Acro Heat here in the compulsory event, but still a strong start there for Mary Hardin-Baylor. Just saw Trine with the Pyramid Heat, and we'll move on to the Crew with a start value, of course, of 10 as well. This compulsory event obviously doesn't dictate how this meet's going to ultimately turn out, but boy, you like to get off to that strong start, lay down that foundation.
Yeah, the compulsory event's pretty much the only event that you're guaranteed a 10-0 start value as well, unless you don't have the full amount of tumblers and the tumbling heat of the compulsory event. But otherwise, this is kind of like this is very a genuine matchup between teams, and this is where you see just the talent between each teams because they're all competing the same thing. They're not creating their own formations and skill sequences, as you see in all the other events.
And I'm going to venture to guess it doesn't surprise you when I tell you that throughout the various quarterfinals and semifinals we've seen in the last couple of days, whoever's had the lead after the compulsory event has gone on to win the meet.
Mm-hmm. That's very common in most meets because it sets the tone and it's really hard to come back, as it's even with any sport. Once you're down, it's like being down at halftime. It's really hard to come back.
And we'll see what Mary Hardin-Baylor has here in the Pyramid Heat yesterday against Texas Lutheran, able to score a 9.68, and they had plenty of 9s across the board en route to producing 266.330, even with a team score of 89.33, but they will come in with a start value of 103.16 to tell you about just all the different elements and the degree of difficulty in the team event for Mary Hardin-Baylor, with a total of 24 competing in that event.
Wow.
But they have grown quickly when you look at their program, where it was in day one to where it is now.
Yeah, and a really important thing, too, about an acrobatics and tumbling program at a college is having those numbers, because when you don't have a lot of numbers, you're faced with crossover rules. And crossover rules is where you can only have so many athletes competing in a certain amount of heats per event. And so then you run into the problem of not having enough girls to even compete in one heat.
And depth not an issue for the Crew. 33 on the roster, 23 back from last year. Got that clean saran wrap catch off the flip following the pyramid heat for Mary Hardin-Baylor. Trine scored a 9.250, so a good bounce back in the pyramid heat for the Thunder. But man, you have to have a trained eye to notice any little footing, any little wobble there, because so far a strong start here for the first two heats for the Crusaders.
You know, the name of the game is making everything look easy in acro. And we all know it's definitely not easy. But even just the slightest shift of weight is considered an instability deduction, even though they're definitely stable.
Yeah.
But that's how serious the judging is in acro. It's very similar to gymnastics. You know, we combine cheer and gymnastics into one sport. But the judging is strongly based on gymnastics.
Is there an advantage? Is there a comfort maybe if they've had the same judges all 3 days for these two teams to kind of know what's expected or how they may get scored in a certain event?
Yeah, definitely. I think having the same judges all the days of the competition at least creates some sort of consistency, so you know what to expect. And you do get your deduction sheet back, after a competition, so you can see what they took points off for. But one thing to note is we're considered the North. Judges in the northern schools and area are notoriously more difficult than judges in the southern schools.
Well, Mary Hardin-Baylor scored a 9.650 out of the toss heat for Trine. Good look there for the Thunder. For yesterday against Concordia, Wisconsin scored a 9.475 in the toss heat. Watching to see some tweaks here and there, and not after, again, 3 days of competition. You're saving your best for last. If you're trying, this is your last opportunity to go out there and compete as a team. Lay it all on the line. You have hopes of pulling off the upset here for this Division III tournament championship. You got to be near perfect. And again, that's what makes Mary Hardin-Baylor so tough and why they've been so good over the last couple of years. They don't make many mistakes, and when they do make a mistake, it's minimal.
I think that's what makes them really strong. They have countless talented athletes on their team. And like you said before, they just have a lot of depth on their team. So if one person gets hurt, there's another girl that's there right away to take her spot. And that's another thing about acrobatics and tumbling is every day you're fighting for a position on this mat. It's not given season starts in February and you're in a heat. That doesn't mean you're in that heat for the rest of the season. Every day you come to practice, you're fighting for that position. Who can do that job the best? Whether you're a base, a top, a back, or a tumbler.
And you look at Trine's roster, they have 14 upperclassmen. That's not to mention the 13 underclassmen all vying for a spot. Mary Hardin-Baylor with 33. There's all kinds of competition day in, day out. And like you said, you're not guaranteed a spot one day to the next because there are 2 or 3 right behind you vying for that time.
Exactly.
The toss seat for Mary Hardin-Baylor. Another impressive showing in that heat after Trine scored a 9.325.
Something that the judges are looking for in this compulsory toss event is that extension as the girls. So they're flipping. They do a backwards flip, and then as they're coming out of that flip position, they are looking for them to be vertical, straight, look like they're standing mid-air, straight up and down. And when you're missing that is quite a large deduction. Now, both teams did have that, but if you look at Mary Hardin-Baylor, theirs was accentuated more. And that's kind of what pleases the judge's eye.
One thing you may note, we've talked about this the last couple of days, is they have a video board here. And they replay each heat, and so the teams will, once they're done, look up and review what just happened, which I think is kind of neat because it allows at least these athletes, if they see maybe something's off a little bit, they can quickly pick up on that and
self-correct.
Make those adjustments in meets. So you may hear some of the cheering in the background, and that tends to be when some of these athletes look up and go, wow, that was better than we thought. Get ready for the tumbling heat. This is always a fun heat because it seems like this is where if there's a struggle in the compulsory event, it tends to occur here. And we've seen some low scores here, so if you can find a way to score a little bit higher here in the tumbling heat, you put yourself in a really good spot.
Absolutely. Having all 8 girls is key, and sticky feet.
Trine Thunder with the tumbling heat. After Mary Hardin-Baylor scored a 9.600 in the toss heat. First, some athletes say that the tumbling heat gives them the anxiety. They just want to get that heat over with. Were you a fan of the tumbling heat?
Yeah, tumbling is definitely my favorite part coming from a gymnastics background. It was what always felt most natural to me, and I was always excited. You know, it's hard to beat the feeling of flying.
And you look for Trine yesterday in the tumbling heat. They scored a 6. Mary Hardin-Baylor against Texas Lutheran ended up scoring an 8.53 in the tumbling heat. But so far, a strong start here for the crew. No less than a 9.3 in each of the first 3 heats. We'll see Abby Coyle, Addison Williams, Chloe Drew, Kensley Walters, Alexis Kokol with Alyssa Washam. You have Callan Doika, who missed last season with injury after being a NCATA Division III Most Outstanding Athlete of the Year in 2022, along with a veteran in Caitlin Kolagizik out there performing for Mary Hardin-Baylor. Going to be tough, too. You have a strong 2022 season, then all of a sudden in 2023 you're out injured and you have to come back and being mentally tough. And remember what happened a couple of years ago and how you get back to where you were those 2 years removed in this sport.
Right. It takes a lot of mental toughness to get out there. And, you know, these girls make everything look so easy. But remember, they're really on about 3.5 inches of foam on a basketball court. It isn't like a traditional cheer gymnastics floor that has springs in it. You know, it just takes a lot of toughness. If you look around at both of these teams, you're going to see several ladies in boots and casts, and that is a sign of the times of where we are in the season.
I'll tell you, it's impressive because we've seen with the teams here throughout these few days, a number of athletes, as you mentioned, that are powering through, playing hurt, if you will. Mary Hardin-Baylor with the tumbling heat to wrap up the compulsory event. Trine scored a 6.750 in the tumbling heat. So for the 4 heats, a score of 33.850 will await the Mary Hardin-Baylor tumbling heat score. But move on to the acro event. What do you tend to expect when you think acro event?
Acro event is where it reminds me, again, a lot of cheerleading, but cheerleading with poise, as I say. It's about holding those skills and elements and learning how to work with another individual to create these sequences. And as you see, the more difficult the sequences are, the higher scores you're going to get, but you do have to be able to execute that. You know, things that are worth a lot of value is the base and a top together with only one base, something that very extended and up into the air.
This is where we start to see some of the start values decrease from that 10 that we saw across the board in the compulsory event. Although here in this first heat 5 element. Both teams will have a start value of 10. And when Trine goes out there, we'll see the likes of Andrea Wagoner along with Michaela Sutherland, Sydney Junt, who has had a great year in this her sophomore season from Rochester Hills, Michigan, along with Nellie Dunscombe, a sophomore from Martinsville, Indiana. And a great year so far for Trine. They're back for their 4th season. At 18 returners from last year's 6-win team. And for the Thunder, honoring 9 on Senior Day a few weeks back, under first-year head coach Alexis Harris, the second head coach in the program's existence after being an assistant at Division II Frostburg State in Maryland. Also competed once upon a time at Adrian. Was an Adrian College Bulldog. How did you handle these downtimes? There was a lot of downtime. How did you stay focused, stay engaged?
I think it wasn't all just me. Coach Sarah did a really good job at keeping us busy during downtimes. You know, get a drink, grab a snack if you need a little bit of a snack, use the restroom. But then we were back to preparing for the next thing that was coming up in the competition, whether we were marking through something or running something alongside the next stunt group, because the time seems long in between heats, but there's so much to warm up throughout the meet that you really are constantly doing something and looking to the next. So you have to be able to separate yourself from what you're competing to what's coming up next while maintaining your cool for both.
Again, both of these teams getting ready for the acro event. In that final heat, tumbling heat for Mary Hardin-Baylor, a score at 8.225. So another strong showing for the crew. A little bit, again, down from where they were yesterday, but nonetheless, 36.825 for the event. So roughly a 3-point lead for Mary Hardin-Baylor after the compulsory event to set the tone in this NCATA Division III final. Right now, the scores being announced here inside the John Book Fieldhouse. Were you one of the athletes that paid attention to the score? Did you focus on that a lot, or were you more just, hey, what's the next event? And you worry about the numbers after?
Yeah, I was not someone that focused on scores. I learned that from my background in gymnastics, that you really can't get hung up on a score because there's other things to be done that day. And if you're hung up on a score from your previous thing that you just did, how are you supposed to focus on the next?
Well, the next here for Trine, the first heat 5-element acro event. The top being Andrea Wagoner, one of the 8 Trine seniors. A little ride there at the end, but prior to, I thought Trine did a nice job of recovering from what could have been pretty disastrous before.
Yeah, it's really hard to recover in the middle of doing a heat. And sometimes you have time to redo what you have missed, but sometimes you don't, because if you don't know, every heat is also timed. So in the acro event, you only have 45 seconds to compete the 5-element heat. And so sometimes if you mess up, you don't have enough time to make that up, and you just have to move forward.
We could see with some of those flips or turns with Andrea Wagoner. Looked like it was going to be a little dicey there for a second, but able to recover. Then the exchange, a little bit of ride there for the Thunder as we await Mary Hardin-Baylor here in the Heat 1 5-element. And yesterday for the crew, only 0.98 off their start value for the entire acro event.
Wow.
Nothing but 9s across the board, including 9.78 in this first heat. So this is where they've had a great deal of success throughout the course of the season, but then across the board they've had a lot of success in about every event. But not uncommon to see upwards of 28-29 for an event score for Mary Hardin-Baylor. In fact, yesterday the 29.03 was second best, beyond only the 29.450 they scored against East Texas Baptist on the 26th of March. And that was a meet in which Mary Hardin-Baylor set a number, or at least tied a number of program records. That's going to be fun to be, as you help grow this program, help grow this sport, but also along the way, I know you were with Concordia, Wisconsin, be a part of a number of program record-setting performances and setting that bar high for those athletes that are coming behind you.
Yeah. It's really something special when you're in a young program. Like, even when I was there, our program was 4 years old, or 3 years old when I came around. Maybe it was 4. I can't remember. But it was young, less than 5, by the time I came around for my freshman year. And it's very much a privilege to be able to be a part of some of those inaugural moments and then set the tone for the rest of the teams that are to come.
Yeah, great opportunity to set that bar high and watch the next group carry on that legacy. The top being Jenna Hall. And the bases being Natalie Podsednik along with Valerie Krovara. And you can hear that energy and the roar coming from that Mary Hardin-Baylor sideline.
Yes, that was very well done. You don't see a lot of Division III programs doing one-man stunts, but they had 2 one-man stunts, which really is why they have those 10-0 start values. It's really hard to achieve that, and that was very well done.
You can see why this is a program ranked 5th in all of NCATA championship rankings. First D3 school to be ranked in the top 5, and again, top 8 will qualify for nationals in a couple of weeks in West Virginia, so looking good for Mary Hardin-Baylor, assuming things continue to go well here this weekend here in Mequon, Wisconsin. Got to believe there's pressure there to some degree, but not pressure that these athletes aren't used to in just continuing to compete at that high level.
Right. Every day is a fight, and they want to improve. And I think it's really awesome that if they can make an appearance at the national level, whether it's all divisions, that really shows that Division III schools have what it takes to be up there with the schools that are Division I.
I think that's neat, and you can relate to this, getting the opportunity to compete against various schools of all different divisions.
Yeah, when I was here, there was no rules about competing against strictly Division III programs. So I competed against Baylor and Oregon, Quinnipiac, all these really big programs that have an endless amount of girls on their roster, it seems like, and sometimes a lot greater opportunity than us. But it was really, really, really good learning experience for our team every single time we matched up with them. Yeah,
those schools just named a who's who, and again, among the leaders right now in the latest NCATA championship rankings. Move on to heat number 2, 6 element, a 9.85 start value for Trine. The 2 tops on your left side was Mel Lowe. Right side as you face your screen, Mia Guarini. Able to recover on that right side, did the Thunder. In the first heat, Trine scoring a 7.700. Mary Hardin-Baylor at a 9.675. So far in the first 5 heats of competition, they have scored 9s in 4 of those 5 heats. And they will come out with a start value of 10 here in Heat 2, 6 element. Boy, a lot going on, and we talk about what these athletes' bodies have gone through in the last couple of days. And again, with that quick turnaround, not a ton of recovery time, finding ways to continue to power through and battle through, and it's sometimes easier said than done. And with that upper body strength, it doesn't feel the same that maybe it felt come Thursday or back on Thursday.
Yeah, it's easy to compete fresh, but by the time you get to 3 days in, you're not so fresh anymore. And it's a true test of athleticism and what you've trained for all season. I don't know about other schools, but I know that Concordia practices early in the morning or before the sun has risen. And so if you can do it at 5 in the morning, you can do it at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I found that very helpful for us throughout the season as you get more worn down. If you could be worn down and practice at 5 in the morning, you can be worn down and compete at noon. And you'll compete much better. That's
what these teams are trying to do. Trine's been in that 2 o'clock time slot the last couple of days, so a little bit earlier of a start. Mary Hardin-Baylor, who had a day off on Thursday, although they practiced briefly in between a couple of the quarterfinals. They competed yesterday at 10 a.m., so for them it's same thing they did yesterday, right back at it today, that same routine.
In the second element, next to the start move, 10.00.
But again, here is Mary Hardin-Baylor at Heat 2, 6 elements. Again, to use the word I've been using quite a bit with Mary Hardin-Baylor, solid, strong. I mean, it just seems like from up here, effortless.
I know. They are very good at what they do, especially at making things look easy, so clean. And their difficulty is just, honestly, it's quite amazing. Their difficulty is up there with all of those Division I programs, and that's something really special.
Well, let me ask you, I know every year is different. Every team's going to be different, but you mentioned some of the teams you've competed against, the likes of Baylor, competing for a national championship every year. Quinnipiac is in that category. Oregon, among the who's who, and I know your former coach, Sarah Koenig, part of a national championship team with Oregon. When you watch those teams compete, what separated them from some of the other teams you had seen? What wowed you about those programs?
The pure talent of the athletes. They have the ability to recruit some of the best gymnasts and cheerleaders, I think, in the country. For various reasons that might draw an athlete to a school or a program. But they get kind of the best, and you can't always get that here, it's different. And being a Division III program, the opportunity is a little bit different for getting people on a team. And so just that difference can be something really hard to battle against in a competition.
Gotta believe, though, it inspired.
Yes.
Facing a team like a Baylor, going, hey, we want to get to that level, or at least close to that level.
Right. It was never discouraging. It was honestly just very impressive and very inspiring to be even just competing with them.
Here's a start value of 10 for Trine, Heat 3, 7 element. The base being Brianna Kelly. Had the chance to talk with the senior yesterday from Milford, Indiana, and you can just tell the excitement yesterday, just being a part of this team, loving being a part of everything that acrobatics and tumbling stands for. Loves her teammates. Could not wait for this opportunity again to compete in a final. Just getting the opportunity to get back on the mat, regardless of who the opponent is. Just getting that opportunity to compete every day because it goes so quick.
Yeah, it does. College is the fastest 4 years of your life, and if you're on a team, then I think it makes those years go by even faster. I've actually had the opportunity to watch her compete now. This is the second time this season. And I don't know her personally, but just observing her on the sidelines with her team, you can tell she plays a big role in that team dynamic and being a leader and being that support person for different girls on the team.
And you said it, leader, well-spoken.
Yes.
Says the right things, and it's that team concept. Here in Heat 3, 7 element, a start value of 10 for Mary Hardin-Baylor. Still waiting a couple of scores to come in from that previous heat here in the acro event. As the crew from Mary Hardin-Baylor looking to repeat as NCATA Division III champions. Trine looking to pull off the upset after you go back to 2022. They lost Adrian, beat Stevenson in the consolation bracket last year. They beat Adrian. They beat East Texas Baptist before. They suffered about a 23-point loss to Mary Hardin-Baylor in the final. Mention also in 2023, Mary Hardin-Baylor came to Angola, Indiana, and they came away with a victory by almost 22 points.
Mm-hmm.
That's the history between these two programs.
Long-standing rivalry, it seems to be.
Certainly growing. Topping Chloe Drew, a four-time All-American cheerleader in her high school days from Belton, Texas. And one of the base being Caitlin Kolagizik, who was the 2023 NCATA Division III Most Outstanding Athlete of the Year after being the NCATA Division III Specialist of the Year in 2022. Your takeaways from watching Mary Hardin-Baylor in heat number 3?
Honestly, it's just another impressive heat. Back to back to back, they continue to not surprise me because I expected this, but to wow me, and their skill, their talent, their cleanliness. It's really shining that they have worked really hard this season to be where they're at. And I feel like something I've noticed on their sideline especially is they have a really strong team chemistry. You can tell that every single girl is involved in everything that's going on. They are paying attention, cheering each other on, whether one person's competing and another group's warming up. They are there for each other inside and out.
And that energy level, contagious. Looking at heat number 2 in the acro event, Trine scored an 8.675. Mary Hardin-Baylor at 9.525. And then in the third heat, Trine with a 9.025. So for the acro event, they scored a 25.400 for a meet score now of 59.250 through the first 2 events scored. So 59.250. And we await the final heat score to come in for Mary Hardin-Baylor before we turn our attention to the pyramid event. Your takeaways or your thoughts on what we can expect here in the pyramid event?
Pyramid event, you want to be still. Still as you can be, clean as you can be, all meanwhile stacking one person on top of another, and making it look easy. Pyramid event was also one of my favorite events. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very unique, something that you truly don't see in any other sport. and probably one of the most difficult. It takes a lot of planning to come up with a pyramid. I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of intricacies that involve pyramids.
Well, I can't get over the inversion. Just being able to, be upside down and be able to hold that for 3+ seconds.
Right.
To train yourself to be able to do it, to trust your base to that degree. A lot of trust that goes into that pyramid. Mary Hardin-Baylor scoring a 9.475 in heat number 3 for the event. 28.675. So through 2 events scored, they have 65.500. Just over a 6-point lead right now for Mary Hardin-Baylor after they're up 3 after the compulsory event. So they've doubled their lead through the first couple of events, and now heat 1 inversion. We'll see Trine come out with a start value of 9.70, and they will come out with Lauren Alexander, Michaela Sutherland, Sydney Junt, Brianna Kelly with Maggie Armentrout, Maeli Dominguez, Nellie Dunscombe, Amy Solvinsky, Anna Trum, Emma Wilkie, and Lauren Hillen with Nevaeh Cruz County. Look at that strength. Lauren Alexander held up by Michaela Sutherland, plus the build up there for Trine. That's exactly what I'm talking about, how you even get to a point where upside down, able to flip like that. And again, just the trust you have in the athletes below you.
I know there's a lot of moving parts involved in a pyramid like that. We always called that the monster pyramid because there's so many different girls on the bottom, in the middle, and then catching, putting someone up. There's many moving parts, and there's a lot of trial and error that comes with pyramid because you do need girls of similar height and similar strength within each level of that pyramid to make it all cohesive.
And it sounds funny, but, everyone has a role. And if you're half a step off, that can make a huge difference.
Right. Half a step is a foot in acro.
Whew. And Mary Hardin-Baylor will come out with a start value of 10. We'll see Morgan Webb, Madison Holmes, Sarah Williamson, with Katie Breckler coming with a cheerleading background, the junior from El Paso, Texas. You have Callan Doika. Actually, she's coming back from injury, a gymnast from College Station, Texas. And Kylie Jones, and this is her freshman year, a cheerleading background with her hometown being Georgetown, Texas. And again, that strength from Madison Holmes holding up Sarah Williamson. You can hear the encouragement from the sideline. Come on, Sarah, you can do it. Able to dig down deep and pulled it off with the inversion pyramid.
Yes, so that was specifically called a bridge pyramid, where the single base, lone base, the only girl on the very bottom, is in a bridge. Think of how many people you know that could actually do a bridge. I'm guessing it's probably 0,
I was
maybe
gonna say,
1.
not many, if any.
Right, only probably the ladies on the team here. So on top of her being in a bridge, she's got 2 other people on top of her, and one of them is upside down. That's what makes acro special. Something you don't see on the daily basis.
And right now the Crusaders watching their performance on the video board here. And you mentioned it. Just think about all the time that has been spent to perfect that.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what that may look like in day 1 versus where they are today.
Right.
That's incredible.
I'm always grateful that no one ever saw us practice because there was some nasty falls that took place, but everything always looked pretty on competition day.
But you bring up, again, that point, okay, so maybe it wasn't pretty from the get-go. But there you go, okay, all the falls, but having to build that trust back up. Doesn't work the first couple of times. It's hard to gain that trust back, and yet somehow you find a way to, again, be mentally strong.
Right. That's why team bonding is so important as well throughout the season.
This is Heat 2 synchronized here in the Pyramid event with a start value of 10 for Trine. So the Trine Thunder in heat number 2. That first heat, the inversion, once again, these scores for Trine, a 9.275. For Mary Hardin-Baylor, a 9.850. So strong stuff there with the likes of Sarah Williamson and Madison Holmes. After Mary Hardin-Baylor scored a 9.78 yesterday, they came away with a 29.18 in the Pyramid, and that's been a strong area for the crew throughout. They've been upwards of 29 points for a event score pretty much all year long. They will come out with a start value at 10. Here in heat number 2 with Callan Doika. You have Caitlin Kolagizik, Jenna Hall, Natalie Patsednik, with Valerie Grovara out there with Morgan Webb, Katie Breckler, Sarah Williamson, Madison Holmes, and sporting jersey number 49 is Ari Grieveson, who's got a cheerleading, swimming, and softball background. She's from the state of New Jersey, the grad student, began her career at Hawaii Pacific University.
Wow, quite the journey she's had.
Yes. From Hawaii to Texas, here she is competing for Mary Hardin-Baylor. As we watch the crew, also kind of unique is the fact that for Grieveson from Hawaii Pacific originally, got the opportunity to go back there this year. They had a meet against Hawaii Pacific, a Division II program in Honolulu. That was on March the 15th, and for Mary Hardin-Baylor, made the most of that trip besides probably enjoying some nice weather.
Yeah.
They came away with a 7-point victory.
Really? Wow. I didn't keep up with that competition. That is so impressive and so exciting. I can't help but have the biggest smile on my face knowing that Division III programs are really paving the way. You know, we used to kind of be the underdogs. Everyone thought, they're Division III, they're not, But Trine and all of these teams, East Texas Baptist, Concordia, and Stevenson and Mary Hardin-Baylor are all proving to show that, Division III schools have what it takes to stay up there with some of the best other programs in the country.
And obviously you hope, but do you ever envision that this sport would grow to where it is today and continuing to grow?
Yeah, I think something that I'm really hoping to see in the future is club programs that have this sport. The exact model of this sport, but not collegiate club, because there's club cheerleading and club gymnastics alongside high school cheerleading and high school gymnastics. But I really want to see clubs starting and doing this exact same format.
Here's Trine in the open heat 3, with a start value of 10. Andrea Wegener, the top, the senior from Syracuse, Indiana. Starting to see, too, you talk about the club aspects. and you're starting to see in some states there's a version of this sport now starting to develop at the high school level. So it's not quite what this is, but slowly but surely it's starting to make its way down to the high school level, and so you might see even a more smoother transition for some of these athletes getting that opportunity at the prep level and then making their way to the collegiate level of competition.
Right. You know, the transition for a lot of these athletes is quite difficult because if you were a cheerleader or a gymnast, especially in that club or prep setting, you're very used to competing on a spring floor. And so you have to totally transform your tumbling into being able to tumble on a foam floor on a basketball court. If the school has a basketball court.
The flat mat.
The flat mat. And it's very unforgiving. And so sometimes you see freshmen really struggle with their tumbling that first year because they don't know how to use the floor to their advantage, you know. And then they come back for their sophomore year and things kind of start making sense for them and they really start gaining ground.
Here at Open Heat 3 Pyramid event for Mary Hardin-Baylor, a start value of 10. Sarah Williamson, the 2022 NCATA Division III Freshman of the Year. Cheerleading background out of Richardson, Texas. Wrapping up the pyramid event.
We will now take a break for halftime. Join us back.
We'll get those scores to you as they come in. But we've reached halftime in this final between the top-seeded Mary Hardin-Baylor Crusaders and the second-seeded Trine University Thunder. We'll take a commercial break. We'll come back, and we'll get you those scores as we continue here on this Saturday. It's the final day of the 2024 NCATA Division III Tournament. Acrobatics and Tumbling on the Falcon. On to the second half of this final for the NCATA Division III Tournament. Up first, Trine with the 450 Assalto Heat number 1 in the toss event. They have a start value of 9.30. Mia Guarini on the toss there for Trine. Yesterday, the Thunder in that first heat produced a 8.925. Can you see the current score after one half? A 7+ point lead. That for Mary Hardin-Baylor, who will come out with a start value of 9.90 here in the 450 Salto. And the crew will come out with Ari Grieveson, Jenna Hall, along with Caitlin Kolagizik, Emily Kithill, with Katie Breckler and Maya Manka County. So the toss event underway here at half number 2, and things tend to, Maddie, pick up here. So that first half, got the 3 events, the various seats, maybe a slower start, and then all of a sudden now, bing, bang, boom, here we go, second half action.
Yeah, things start getting really fast when it comes to, you know, the 3 T's, toss, tumbling, and team event. And if you think about acro and pyramid, there's a lot of like held counts, but with toss, it's fast. You're up and you're down. With tumbling, you're flipping, you're upside down, you stick it, you land, and you move on. And so these events go by really, really fast.
Great showing so far from the Crusaders as they get the second half started with their first heat here in the toss event. Great job there again from the crew. Kind of unique, too, and we talk about the pacing here in this second half, and things tend to pick up. And you'll see both sidelines. Yes, you have the toss event going on. Yeah, the tumbling event just around the corner, but in some instances, already some athletes getting ready for the team event as well.
Yeah, with this half of the meet moving by so quick, you do need to start warming up for that team event at the end because there's so many different elements that go into the team event. And so it's critical to start warming that up between every single heat.
On the second heat here in the toss, even will be synchronized. Trine with a start value of 9.25. We'll see Mia Garini, Nevaeh Cruz, Brianna Kelly, Michaela Sutherland, Sydney Junt. The one grouping, the other will include Maggie Armentrout, Juliana Porco, Mel Lowe, Anna Trump, Emma Wilkie, and Kayla Stoffler is counting. That first heat produced a score of 8.850 for Trine.
Heat 2 of this event is the synchronized toss. Up first with a start value of 9.25 for Trine.
Start value here in Heat 2, synchronized at 9.25 for the Thunder. In that first heat, besides Trine scoring at 8.850, Mary Hardin-Baylor scored a 9.500, so just nines across the board right now for the crew. They'll come out with a start value of 9.40 in this second heat. Madison Holmes, Sarah Williamson, Morgan Webb, Natalie Putsednik, and Alyssa Washam in the one grouping. Katie Breckler, Emily Kithill with Caitlin Kolagizik, Ari Grieveson, and Jenna Hall being the other with Maya Manka counting. Some solid start values, though, for both of these teams. You can see why, and as this meet has developed, you can see why these are the quote-unquote top two teams in this NCATA Division III tournament.
Yeah, a combination of high skill level and cleanliness, executing those skills is really what's setting them apart from the other teams here this week.
Kind of rematch from last year when these teams met in the final from Mary Hardin-Baylor. The expectation of Division III is going to grow. At least a couple of more teams come next year. This event expected to take place in Buffalo, New York. So an opportunity to see other parts of the country too, which also makes this a memorable experience. Timing perfect. Talk about the importance of the counter and the role that she tends to play. And again, you see the flip, you see the cat, everything just in sync.
Right, everyone's kind of counting on you and making sure that you're keeping everybody on the same page throughout whatever sequence it may be, especially when it comes to synchronized heats where there's two groups going at once, not just one.
It's always impressive how the one group can be on the same page with the other without even really looking at one another. But again, that counting, everything goes into that. And
everyone's on the same page when it comes to the numbers, And
in some cases, depending on the way they're positioned, you may see the back of one of your teammates' head, and that person that's next to you only sees the other team. So again, just by counting, just by the communication, that's what it comes down to. And well done there by Mary Hardin-Baylor. As that second heat produced an 8.325 for Trine. Chance here to get a little creative now with the open heat, Heat 3. And a start value of 9.40 for Trine to wrap up the toss event. And out there for Trine, you had Maggie Armentrout with Juliana Porco, Mel Lowe, Anna Trump, and Andrea Wegner. Heat 2 synchronized, a score of 8.325 for Trine, a score of 8.975 for Mary Hardin-Baylor. They'll come out here in this open heat with a start value at 9.40. And Madison Holmes, Natalie Podsednik, Alyssa Washam, Morgan Webb, Sarah Williamson, and again the counting from Maya Manka, junior with a gymnast background, 10-time national medalist, a 16-time regional medalist, and a 22-time state medalist, bringing that resume to acrobatics and tumbling. And we've touched on that quite a bit over the last couple of days, too, is just the backgrounds, whether it be gymnasts, cheerleading, dance. I mean, other sports certainly in there, too, but it's unique how all comes together and all those different skills work in a sport like this.
Yes.
Wrapping up the toss event. Your thoughts?
Everything's looking really well. I think Trine had a really nice event. After halftime, it looks like they got warmed up and regrouped and are ready to go for the second half.
Was that ever tough for you to go from the energy level of half number one, you get that 15-minute break, and then you have to, again, build that energy back up at half two?
Yeah, I think for the first half of the competition there's a lot of energy, but it's a different type of energy because we're doing different types of skills. But the second half of the meet is where you need that energy. You need that extra push from your teammates to stay motivated. And because these events in the last half of the meet require a lot of energy and a lot of power. And so it's really important to have strong team energy going into the second half.
Well, looking at the toss event for Trine, they ended up scoring a 9.00 in Heat 3 for a total event score of 26.175, so not far off their total start value. They have an event and now a meet score of 113.675, so 113.675 as we await the Heat 3 score for Mary Hardin-Baylor. But up next is the tumbling event, and you said you were a fan of the tumbling event?
Tumbling event's my favorite event alongside team event because there's so much going on in team event. But tumbling event will always have a special place in my heart. I competed in 2 different heats every year for that, and I really enjoy watching these ex-gymnasts and cheerleaders kind of have their time to shine because tumbling is the only part of acro that becomes individual. It's all on you. You're not working with anybody else, relying on anybody else for you to make those skills happen.
No.
And so I really like to watch this part.
That's really unique, and you see it as the various passes come along, and it's always unique, too, to see each athlete's different. Some need that pump up from a team, and others leave them alone. Let them be in their own element. In that toss event, heat number 3 open, score 9.125 for Mary Hardin-Baylor for the event, 27.600, and now for the meet, 122.375. So they have built close to a full 9-point lead, 122.375 to 113.675 after leading by close to just over 7 points at halftime. So you can see with every passing event, although Trine is keeping it close, Mary Hardin-Baylor is inching further and further away. We'll start the tumbling event with the duo pass. For Trine, a start value of 9.10 with Lauren Hillen and Mia Guarini.
Trine, number 2, Lauren Hillen, and number 8, Mia Guarini.
You talked about it earlier. You see all kinds of wraps, braces, legs, arms, shoulder.
You name it.
Exactly. And you see right there probably came into play a little bit in injury and trying to power through.
Right. You know, there's only so many girls on a team that have those high-level tumbling skills, and it's just sometimes you can't afford to lose one, and that's really tough when you have to compete through an injury, because we all know that pain of tumbling on this hard mat, unforgiving mat.
Absolutely.
When you're facing an injury.
Hopefully everybody's all right.
Yes.
For Mary Hardin-Baylor, a start value 9.40 for the duo pass. Kinsley Walters, Addison Williams, only a freshman, and making a name for herself. Her first go-around in acrobatics and tumbling, and then in the case of Kinsley Walters, she was very impressive yesterday. We'll see her again in the aerial pass. But for Kinsley Walters, in her senior season, the 4'9" senior gymnast out of Grand Prairie, Texas. I love that duo. You have a freshman and a senior, so you have the current and soon-to-be graduate,
right,
and the future in that particular pass.
There's a lot to be learned when working with an upperclassman.
Next, with a start value of 9.40, Mary Hardin-Baylor, number 30, Kinsley Walters, and number 1, Addison Williams.
All about sticking that landing, too, but timing was there.
Something that's interesting to see how they approach their tumbling is with the synchronized passes, those girls tumbled very close to each other, which some gymnasts and cheerleaders do not prefer that. They do not like tumbling that close to someone, but those girls tumbled right next to each other, and what my guess is that strategy is it keeps them their timing on. Their synchronicity.
And I was going to say, from my understanding, regardless of spacing, I mean, obviously we collide, that's a whole other story, but as far as spacing goes, that really doesn't come into play when it comes to the judging.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. If you want to tumble 20 feet apart or 20 inches apart, they don't care as long as you're landing what you say you're going to do.
Well, in the duo pass, Trine scored a 7.225. Of course, he had the injury there at the end, and hopefully everything checks out for Trine as we move on to the trio pass. Thunder will come out with a start value of 7. Olivia Hardup, Alexandra Misson, and Summer Allen will be out there.
We now move on to the trio pass. Up first with a start value of 7.00, Trine. Number 16, Olivia Hartup. Number 32, Alexandra Misson.
Mary Hardin-Baylor scoring an 8.800 in their duo pass. You talk about spacing, you talk about timing. In this case, now you got a couple other teammates to, whether it be your right side, left side, in between. It all comes into play now versus just the one other, and so much goes into that as well, and just being making sure you're on the same page.
Right. It's really hard because tumbling is a very individualistic, part of gymnastics and cheerleading and acrobatics and tumbling, and so if you come from a background where you don't synchronize tumble, so in cheerleading there is synchronized tumbling, but in gymnastics there's not. So you come into acro and you don't know how to tumble with someone else. You're like, what does that, your timing is, you've been working on your timing, most gymnasts, for 15 years.
I would think that would be the most difficult aspect of it, not the tumbling aspect, but more so just, again, making sure that, like you said, you're in sync, you're synchronized. Right. So many of these gymnasts are used to at their own pace. What works for them.
Right.
And now you got to be.
What works for everyone.
Yes. I'm going to eventually get some of these athletes maybe have to slow down just
to
work well with their teammates.
Some have to slow down. Some have to speed up. You might take, instead of taking a 3-foot step, you take a 2 3/4 foot step because that keeps you all at the same timing.
And again, it doesn't sound like a huge adjustment, but if you're used to one way and you've done that for
10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a huge adjustment.
Right.
Mary Hardin-Baylor with a start value 9.10 for this trio pass with my Manka, you have Jenna Hall and Katarina Wright. Wow.
Mary Hardin-Baylor has some sneaky athletes, you know. Number 5. Number 5, she's been a counter for a lot of different groups throughout the day. But then she just comes out here and whips one of the highest, the biggest twist you can do is a 1.5 twist. And she just comes and competes in trio event.
That being Maya Manka, the 5'3" junior from Prosper, Texas. Talked about her gymnastic background earlier, and you're right. And the other thing I was going to mention too is talking about the landing is doesn't have to be, stick it right from the get-go. You get that little leeway of maybe a half a step that comes into play a little bit too. So you kind of see that, especially on that particular sticking the landing on the trio pass for Mary Hardin-Baylor, but that doesn't necessarily count against.
Right.
Looking at the trio pass score for Trine, a 5.875. Let's move on to the quad pass. 8.50 for Trine. Juliana Porco, Lauren Alexander, Emma Wilkie, and Sydney Junt on the mat for the Thunder. Mary Hardin-Baylor scored an 8.750 in the trio pass. Well done.
Very nice.
And timing is everything, and that seemed to be spot on for those 4 athletes. And again, when you think about being a judge in this instance, you're looking for everything. And for the untrained eye, when we're sitting up here watching, it almost looks perfect, but there's little things that may be off that they see that we wouldn't necessarily see. You may see it because you've been out there.
Right.
But it's impressive stuff.
It is. That was very, very nice from them.
When you watch this tumbling event, what are you watching for?
I'm watching for form. So tumbling in acrobatics and tumbling is, again, judged very similarly to gymnastics. So they're looking for straight legs, pointed toes. There's different terms for tumbling where it's something like called throwing your head back, which that's a deduction because it's taking away your height. Height is a deduction. If you tumble crooked, that's a deduction, So I'm looking for all of those things. Basically, if it looks pretty, it's probably going to score better than if it doesn't.
We're going to see in that quad pass.
8.50, Mary Hardin-Baylor.
You see Mary Hardin-Baylor first. They're going to come out with a start value of 8.50, and they will come out with Maddie Malesic, a freshman from Georgetown, Texas. You have Caitlin Kologizik along with Callan Doika and Caroline Rowe. And well done on the timing there for Mary Hardin-Baylor. In the quad pass out of a start value 8.50, Trine scored an 8.000. But now we go to the individuals. And with the aerial pass coming up here, the 8.90 start value for Trine. It's going to be Emma Wilkie. She'll be up first, a freshman base and tumbler from Louisiana. And right now, looking over in the corner, a couple of her teammates. Some words of encouragement. Depending on what the event was, were you one that wanted people around? Did you like to get pumped up? Were you one that wanted to be left alone in certain instances and let yourself focus and do what you needed to do?
I think coming from my background of being a gymnast, I was used to being on my own. So everything is very independent when it comes to traditional gymnastics. Everything's on you, So when it came to acro meets, the first half, I was all about being with everybody, hanging out. But as soon as tumbling came around, I was more of the type that needed to be on my own. Maybe not needed, but preferred.
Sure.
I didn't need extra encouragement because I usually found that from within, just from years of that being my normal practice.
We saw Wilkie getting Some words of encouragement prior to this. Job well done. And came in with an 8.90 start value after yesterday. She scored an 8.625. The score for Mary Hardin-Baylor in the quad pass, 8.050. So, again, they were just off their start value slightly. Here in this aerial pass, Kinsley Walters. Again, she was impressive yesterday against Texas Lutheran. Registered a 9.600 out of 10. And that's for Walters. Her senior year among 17 with one grad student on this roster of 33 from Mary Hardin-Baylor. After this, we have the 6-element pass and the open pass to wrap up the tumbling event before we move on to the team event to wrap up this NCATA Division III final. You see in the background, you saw it a second ago, the trophy is resting across the way, so both these teams know what's on the line. They see it, you can look at it throughout the course of this meet. Kinsley Walters. That's what gets me when you watch a performance like that, is going from one element, one move to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and really no second to think. Just for her, it's probably
second nature.
Absolutely. It's been her routine, but just impressive how she goes bing, bang, boom.
Right. That's what practice is for. Practice makes perfect, and practice creates those muscle memory, you know. So when you're nervous or you're in a different environment, your muscles remember what to do even if your brain doesn't.
And then on top of that, not only timing, but then also got to be aware of where you might be in adjacent to the mat.
Yeah.
As you near that edge.
It is a deduction if you go off the mat.
Plus you have to stick the landing. So that all comes into play,
right.
and just knowing your surrounding. Besides the mat itself, I know for these teams, maybe not so much Trine, who has been here many times in the past, more so for Mary Hardin-Baylor and some of the other schools, getting used to the John Book Fieldhouse. You know, in some instances, this may be a bigger environment than some of these schools are used to. And we mentioned earlier, based on location, in some instances, not a ton of fans.
Right.
That's changed here today for this final, but just based on location, you have to bring your own energy, and that noise level, it all comes into play.
Yes, definitely. And the funny thing about different schools, too, is with them being in different field houses or gymnasiums, as you see some of these girls start way off in the corner, not every field house or gym has that, and that will really mess you up if you're in a tumbling event. So you have to be adaptable the best you can.
Here's the 6-element pass with Sydney Junt for Trine. A start value 8.45. Sydney Junt, the sophomore from Rochester Hills, Michigan, a tumbler. In the aerial pass, Trine scored an 8.650. Mary Hardin-Baylor at 9.450. They'll come out here in the 6-element pass with Jenna Hall and a start value at 9.50. Did it matter to you, the type of gym, the type of field house? Did you want a bigger, more open environment? Do you like the compact, enclosed environment?
I really prefer the larger area of space, you know, just because I felt like there was room for everyone to do their own thing, whether they're mentally warming up or physically warming up. But a big thing for me was fan involvement. I loved having a crowd, having a lot of people cheering. Even if it wasn't for Concordia, if there was just fans there, it was exciting to be able to show people what Acro's all about. And that made me super excited to compete, whether they were for the opposing team or for us.
So you enjoyed an environment where the fans were kind of on top of you, so to speak.
Yeah. I am definitely one to perform better in front of a crowd than individually, you know. It's all what you do with your adrenaline.
What I love about this sport, too, is more times than not, the fans may be cheering for a certain team, but overall, they're cheering for the sport on both sides. Just want to see a great competition.
Right.
Wow, Jenna Hall, a cheerleader, a gymnast, a sophomore from Houston, Texas. Gets picked up by her teammates.
Crowd surfing, her own team.
What is it about the tumbling event, too? You see it on both sidelines. The cheers afterwards when the teammates come back and greet you. It's whether it be a high-five tunnel and a line, or in this case, body surfing. It just seems like there's always something for these athletes to come back to.
Right. I think, there's always a couple girls on a team that might not be their best tumblers, or they don't tumble at all, but they know that tumbling is such a crucial part of this sport, because by the time you get to a tumbling event and team event, you need that high level tumbling, that they appreciate those girls that do the tumbling. And I would argue that tumbling is the most physically taxing part of this sport because of the dead mat where it's no spring. And so they appreciate all of their tumblers and all of the hours and mileage and pounding and wear and tear that gets put on their body.
It's impressive to watch as we get to the open pass. Trine over start value 9.10. And Mia Guarini, junior from North Riverside, Illinois, will be on the mat for Trine. Just waiting for the Mary Hardin-Baylor score to come in from that sixth element pass.
Up first with a start value of 9.10, Trine. Number 8, Mia Guarini.
In the meantime, here is Guarini. And the landing.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
She didn't even need extra floor. She started on the mat and ended on the mat.
In that sixth element pass, Trine scored an 8.025. Mary Hardin-Baylor scored a 9.075. It's going to be the crew's turn here in the open pass with a start value at 9.75. We'll come out with freshman Addison Williams. Freshman from Kaufman, Texas, a two-time All-American cheerleader, a nursing major. One of 8 freshmen. It's going to be a little bit intimidating, too. You obviously know your skill set, but with a sport that may still be relatively new to you, to be the freshman that come into a program that has built itself up to what it became last year and have so many experienced athletes in front of you. But also with that being said, and you mentioned it earlier, it's also an opportunity for these freshmen to learn from those ahead of you, and these freshmen have made an instant impact.
Yeah, and those upperclassmen teach you so much more than just acro. They are student athletes. They are students as well, and real people that have real responsibilities besides being an athlete. And seniors really guide you in that transition process.
So Addison Williams wrapping up the tumbling event. We'll get the scores to you in a moment. As the focus now turns to the team event. Now, this is fun. This is a great way to wrap up these meets. And just so much energy. The energy level goes to a whole nother level. In some instances, the music is awfully loud, but every coach, every team gets to pick what volume they want that music at, what works for your team. And I know some athletes, they don't want it as loud because they want to be able to hear the counting that goes on, but you get it from the rest of the athletes on the sideline.
Right.
And we'll see, in this case, for Trine, 23 athletes. The maximum is 24. 24 are going to be out there for Mary Hardin-Baylor. So this is going to be a lot of fun over the next 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
It's the most exciting 2 minutes and 45 seconds of the day, that's for sure.
And you always enjoy the team event?
Yes, very much.
So much goes into it. And I mean, this is a year's worth of practice all coming down to this one moment.
Yes, it is incredibly exhausting. It honestly makes me laugh just thinking about it because I remember what it was like to be training for team event, and you would just be dog tired. And it wasn't just one. You didn't do one in a practice. You did 5, 6 in a practice, and we always saved them for Friday. It was always Friday mornings. That was team event day. But as much as it was exhausting and it was the hardest part of the meet, it was my favorite part because it was so rewarding to put everything you've worked for all year long together in 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
And how you guys get the routine down to that split second is mind-boggling. I can remember your senior year, the final time you guys had your team event, and I can still see, and it's almost like it was yesterday, that final few seconds, you dropped to a knee and kind of, waved kind of to the crowd, and it just, all the energy, everything just came out in that last moment, that last hurrah, and you threw it all out there on the mat.
Yeah. It's an emotional time as a senior competing that team event one last time. I felt like we were a really, really close team that year, and everyone, we had been through so much as that group with COVID and our season being taken away. And then even my senior season, things didn't go as planned, with dealing with COVID stuff. And so everyone just truly wanted to put it all on the map for the seniors because they knew that this was it for us and we were moving on, and we just wanted to set the tone before we left.
It was impressive. And as the scores are announced here for the tumbling event, in that open pass heat, Trine scored an 8.875, so for the tumbling event, they scored a 46.650. For Mary Hardin-Baylor, they scored a 9.575 in the open pass for an event score of 53.700. And so far in the meet, Mary Hardin-Baylor has opened up a near 16-point lead, 176.075 to 160.325. That gets us to the team event. Trine will be up first. They will have a start value of 98.69. On Thursday against Buffalo State, Trine scored a 85.140. And then yesterday against Concordia, Wisconsin in the semis, scoring an 86.840. So the clock is set at 2:45 for the 23 athletes for Trine University as we get ready for the team event to wrap up this final of the NCATA Division III tournament. The Trine University Thunder with their team event. Love how the energy level, too, throughout the course of the event, it tends to pick up.
Yeah, for sure. That was a very, very nice team event from them. Everything was very well put together. I can't help but almost get a little bit emotional because I know how those seniors feel, and that's it for them. You know, this is probably their last time unless they have a little COVID season in their back pocket, which they might. But I know how it feels to be your last, and Acro's been such a huge part of your life for the last 4 years, and I just saw them putting it all out on the floor.
Well, I love it. Every alum I've worked with over these last couple of days, everyone's got the same reaction. Like, you're dancing along, you're clapping along, like you're getting into this team event. Mm-hmm. When you're watching it all transpire, is your eye glued to one area? You're all kind of all over the place.
Honestly, I try to watch the whole thing. I try to watch every different aspect. I don't know. I just love team event. I don't have anything that ever stands out to me that I'm looking for. I'm just looking to see if everything's going to hit.
Well, after this, we're going to see Mary Hardin-Baylor is going to come out with a start value of 103.16. And yesterday in their semifinal victory against Texas Lutheran, they ended up scoring an 89.33. On the year, you look meet by meet for the crew. In the team event, their highest score has been 97.490, which came in their opening meet at Baylor on the 11th of February. Also, a quick reminder, still to come today at 7 o'clock. Note the start time at 7 o'clock Central will be the event finals. And so a little bit of a different format. All 8 schools in Division III will be represented in the event finals. Adrian's the one team that did not get the opportunity to partake in the team event, but they will be represented. In fact, some of the Bulldogs in the stands here now, taking in this final before the event finals tonight, which will include 5-element acro, 6-element acro, 7-element acro, the inversion pyramid, synchronized pyramid, open pyramid, the 450 salto toss, synchronized toss, open toss, duo pass, trio pass, quad pass, aerial pass, the 6-element pass, and the open pass. So every team will be represented in those various events. 3 per event. Mary Hardin-Baylor across the board will be involved in the event finals coming up tonight at 7. So right now the judges a lot to go over. That would be probably the toughest part is you talk about trying to take it all in. Now as a judge, it is enjoyable to watch, but
they have to judge.
Exactly, and
right.
You're watching for every little thing you could possibly knock them off for.
Right.
Fulfilling the requirement.
Right, and if you didn't know, there's 9 panels and there's 3 judges. So each judge only judges 3 panels. They do not have to look outside those 3 panels they're assigned.
Here's the team event for University of Mary Hardin-Baylor.
University of Mary Hardin-Baylor. Crusaders.
Great time there from the Mary Hardin-Baylor Crusaders. And heck of a way to wrap up this final. Love at the end, too, how they get the crowd involved. They get them to stand up, and boy, do they get into it as well.
Yes.
NCATA National Championships will take place April 25th.
Said it before, I'll say it again. That's just organized chaos.
It is organized
You
chaos.
make it work.
Every little step, every breath, finger pointing at someone else, everything's choreographed. It might look like it's all straightforward, but it is sure not.
And I love, too, it's okay, you take care of what you need to take care of, but then there's also time to turn around and start cheering on your teammates as they're doing their thing. I mean, there's something everywhere on the mat going on.
Always. There was never a time that you didn't have a job. If you weren't actively doing a stunt or a toss or tumbling, you were telling someone else what they were doing and cheering them on and counting for them or whatever they needed.
And obviously it's choreographed, but how long did it take you to memorize? Like, for instance, your role.
Yeah.
All the different steps that you had.
Yeah. Honestly, it takes a lot of practice, and we would do something called marking where you don't actually do the skills, you would mark through the skills. We probably marked that routine over 100 times, at least. And then you would go back to your dorm or your apartment, wherever you lived, and you would practice it. You would play the music, Sarah would send us the music, and you would practice it, and you would walk it out in your room, because it needs to become that muscle memory.
Do you ever get sick of the song?
Yes.
To the point now I don't even listen to the music?
Yes. My freshman year specifically, I didn't love the team event music that year, and so every song that was in that mashup, I always hit skip.
Right now, the crew watching the video board, watching their team routine. Again, they're hoping that they will be part of the NCATA National Championship that will take place in a couple of weeks in Fairmont, West Virginia.
I sure hope they have a great showing there. Represent Division III well, and that we can hang with the big dogs.
That's going to be April 25th through the 28th. The championship field and the at-large qualifiers for the event finals will be released coming up on Monday, April 15th. And again, we look at the NCATA championship rankings. Mary Hardin-Baylor ranked 5th. Baylor 1, Quinnipiac 2, Gannon 3rd, Oregon 4th. Then you have Azusa Pacific, Fairmont State, Frostburg State, Limestone, and Augustana 6 through 10. And again, the top 8 in the final rankings will qualify for the 2024 NCATA National Championships. And the field will be announced coming up on Monday. Just waiting for the team event score to come out, but that trophy already is leaning toward the Mary Hardin-Baylor side as they're about to win their second consecutive NCATA Division III championship. And I got to believe regardless of year, regardless of competition, regardless of score, it never gets old.
No, it never does. All that hard work and being rewarded for that never gets old.
They end up scoring an 87.950 in the team event, and they win this by nearly 19 points. So last year, they won by about 23. This year, they win by about 19. And what's kind of unique is Trine had almost the same score as last year, where Mary Hardin-Baylor came down about 4 points, but nonetheless, they get it done with 264.025. Trine at 245.665. So right now, those scores being announced, and in a second, that trophy about to get handed out.
Trine's final score is 245.665. And Mary Hardin-Baylor finishes with a final score of 264.025. Congratulations to the winner of today's meet, the University of Mary Hardin-Baylor Crusaders.
So again, University of Mary Hardin-Baylor, your 2024 NCATA Division III champions. And before that trophy gets presented. The exchanging of
Good game.
good job, good game. Good meet
Yeah.
between Trine and Mary Hardin-Baylor, who competed against one another for a second consecutive year in this final. And now that trophy about to be handed out with Rafaela Scadoy, the second-year head coach for Mary Hardin-Baylor, second coach of the program's history. Competed once upon a time at Baylor as a walk-on and was part of 3 other NCATA national championships with one individual event national championship. So that's handed to Caitlin Polagizik, one of the 7 seniors and grad students, as the crew celebrates their team championship. Maddie, your thoughts on this final?
I think it's great. It's really awesome to see this program and this division growing, and I am not surprised one bit that they have a win, coming out with a win today. Those girls work very hard, as does every other team, and they're truly dedicated to their craft.
You've seen a lot of teams throughout your lifetime in this sport. Where's Mary Hardin-Baylor rank in your opinion? How good were they today?
Honestly, they weren't flawless, but they were pretty darn close. Their difficulty, their execution, everything was just so well done, and I'm so impressed by their performance today. I'm telling you, they're up there with those Division I programs, and I want to see them at that national championship. I really hope they get there. I want to see what they can do.
They improved to 9-1. Winners of 9 straight. Trine done at 7-3. Maddie, great job.
Thank you for having me.
All the best anytime. And again, stay tuned. The event finals coming your way tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll be back on around 7 here on the Falcon Athletic Network to wrap up these 3 days. The 2024 NCATA Division III tournament again for a second straight year. Mary Hardin-Baylor, your D3 champions. For Maddie Schultz, our entire crew, Matt Mendel, so long from the John Book Fieldhouse and Acrobatics and Tumbling on the Falcon Athletic Network.